George also, Ilan Sinelnikov, who today takes the pictures and everything, but is the president of SSM National. And we have also the chairwoman of the organization of our board, Valeria Chasen, also with us today. And I really want to thank them for thinking about this campaign and helping us going through it. And I think what Nick just asked you guys are important questions, and part of the idea of why we're here is kind of to take down that false argument that Israel is somehow European-based society. And for every Israeli or everyone who ever visited Israel, you can see the diversity, the amazing, amazing multiculturalism that Israel is. And that's why we have all of our panelists here today. And before we'll start, I want them to introduce themselves. So I'll give to Sivan.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Sivan, I'm 24 years old. I was actually born and raised in Israel, but my parents came from Ethiopia in 1991. I live in Tel Aviv now, and I'm a singer and a performing artist. Thank you very much for coming today.
My name is Floreta. I'm 21 years old. I was born and raised in Mexico City, and I moved to Israel 3 years ago to study political communications in the IBC in Herzliya.
Hi, I'm Gidi. I'm 30. I live in Jerusalem, and I was born in Moscow, Russia. I came to Israel when I was 3 years old, and I work in high-tech in Intel in Jerusalem.
Thanks everyone. My parents were born in Northern Africa. My dad was born in Morocco, in Casablanca. My mom was born in Algeria, in a city called Constantine. When she was 3, they moved to France. And I will tell you more about their story, and each one of us will tell you the story of their family. And I think it's amazing to try to look the links, the interesting links between our stories, although our parents and our families came from different areas. But I want to give you some kind of background of the whole idea of the immigration nation, as we call this campaign. And we want to talk about the nationality laws in general. We have here 2 quotes. One of the quotes is that by international custom, each sovereign state can generally have the right to determine which citizen of another country or any other person can become its national and become a citizen in its country. And there are 2 main general ideas. The one is that we have the birthright citizenship. So we're talking about states that decide to give citizenship to the people who are born within the territory of the state. We have, of course, the US, we have Canada, Mexico, Argentina, and Brazil. And there's a different kind of way of thinking about citizenship, more of a family line. One acquires the nationality of its ancestors. Israel is this kind of country. We have also Thailand, we have Japan. Just an interesting note about Japan, it's a country of over 120 million people. That more than 95% of it, you can trace to have an ancestral roots in Japan. The same, similar things happen in also Romania and in Thailand and Poland. Some countries mix the two, which means that you can actually be born in the territory of that country and get citizenship, and also if you can prove that you have some ancestral roots over there, that you can get citizenship. Lately, both Spain and Portugal, due to their very hard economic condition, they actually invite people that can prove that they have roots in Spain or in Portugal to pass a lot of tests and become citizens. So they used to be the upper one, and now they're coming back to be the second type of countries. But there are other ways to get citizenship. You can have the naturalization process, which means you stay in a country for a long time, you're a resident, and then you become citizen. You can do it through marriage. In Israel, for instance, even if you're not Jewish, you get married to a Jew, you can become a citizen. And even if you're in gay marriages, if you get married all over the world to a gay person and he's Israeli, you can become Israeli as well. Other processes are skilled workers or asylum seekers. And this amazing slides tells the whole story. These are the roots of Israeli society in year 2010, and you can see that we have 26% of the citizens that their roots came from the Soviet Union, 15% from Morocco, where my dad came, Algeria 4%, Egypt 2%, Ethiopia 3%. We have from Iran and Afghanistan 4%, Argentina 2%, all over the world, North America 5%. If that's not diversity, I don't know what is. That's an amazing, amazing slide. And this is about my story a bit. This is my dad up there holding his hand together. And this is my mom in some wedding in France. My dad here in Morocco. And this is me in Israel. I can tell you a short story about my dad. I go to this slide. I all the time ask my dad, how was it like to, what did you think about Israel before you moved to Israel? And he told me that he all the time heard about Jerusalem and about the fact that he wasn't in his real home. That's all the things he heard about. And I asked him when the time came to move to Israel, what you thought? He told me I was afraid, because I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I should go there. When you think about it, that's unthinkable for people like us to go to a place that you feel that you should go. This is your true home, but you don't know what's waiting for you. But you still decide on to do it. And the hardest stuff is that they only took one suitcase, which means it's not just to leave a place that you left and then going, it's to start from scratch. He was 16 when he left. Imagine that, 16 to start with the clothes on you. And today I can tell you that I think that he did an amazing job, and also my mom. That's when they got married, when they're in their early 20s in Israel. They met each other in the north of Israel, and both of their families ended up in Ashdod, so that's why they could have dated in Ashdod. It's a city on the south of the coast. This is me and my wife and my daughter. So, Shaili. And this is also an amazing picture that just happened. In the center, it's my grandmother. She's 90. She's the mother of my mother. And here, all of our cousins and daughters and fathers, and we even have some people that are not in the picture. So I think if you take their starting point and where they got to, it's an amazing, amazing achievement. This is me wherever I've been. I work for Israel's mission to the UN, and here with Ilan at the Knesset. And this, I got my master's in Minnesota after I got a Fulbright scholarship. And I mostly put this slide to pass you the feeling that my parents were immigrants that came with nothing. And Israel allowed them to have sons and daughters that could be successful. And it's something that I don't think all around the world you can take for granted, that as a son of two immigrants, you could be successful. That's in Morocco. To tell you a bit of a story about Morocco, that the situation of the Jews really became really bad after Israel was established. A lot of the neighbors of the Jewish population told them they had to leave. And if you look between the years 1948 to 1951, only 2 years, almost 30,000 Jews left to go to Israel. The return of the king, Muhammad V, actually was supposed to help that situation, but it did not help. The Jews had to leave, during the night, using all those kind of secretive kind of ways. And during the 60s, the early 60s, only 4 years, 61, 62, 63, 64, almost 100,000 more people left. And the Israeli government even wanted more people to come from Morocco, and they paid $500,000 to the king, to the kingdom, and another $100 for every person that they will let leave Morocco. So it's an amazing story. And that last sentence, by 1967, less than 20 years after Israel was established, 250,000 Jews from Morocco left. It's not by chance, it's not something, it's people that were asked to leave and some people that wanted to go to the only Jewish state in the world. It wasn't easy for a lot of people. The route was through boat or through a plane. My dad left using a boat called Jerusalem. They took a boat to Marseille in France, and then they moved to Israel. But these poor people, 44 people that went on a ship called Egoz, in a nutshell, you can say, or not, they died in sea. They never made it to Israel. There's a lot of other stories of people that wanted to come to Israel, and on their way, they died. And this is an amazing, amazing map. Every time I see it, it's unbelievable. All those spots that Jews came from all over the Middle East to Israel. It's like we just had the Seder, right? The Exodus from Egypt. That's a new Exodus. That's unbelievable. 800,000 people were in the Arab countries, and today there was only 4,000 people. And you can see that from Algeria, 140,000, from Yemen, 63,000, even from Syria, 30,000 people. And every day Israel commemorates the idea that those people, many of them were refugees. They were actually asked to leave without anything. And they're from Arab countries, but also from Iran. We've just been in LA. There's also a large Jewish community from Iran that left in 1979 after the Shah fell and the Islamic Republic of Iran started. A lot of Jews also left for Israel. So that's also an amazing I'll move it now to Sivan to tell you a bit more about the process of migrating to Israel.
So the process of the action of coming to Israel, called Aliyah, probably most of you know it, and the definition is the immigration of Jews from the diaspora to the land of Israel. It's coming to Israel, and I just want to say that we, my family, and I think most of the Israeli and Jewish people in Israel see it as coming back home, homecoming, and not immigrating to other country. Making Aliyah by moving to the land of Israel is one of the most basic tenets of Zionism. This is how we see it in my grandparents' side and my parents' side. So the Tikva, the hope, is Israel's national anthem, and I just want to emphasize that hope for, which brings me to my story. I will give you a little bit of background of what happened in Ethiopia in the 70s. Ethiopia was a dictatorship, and back in the 70s there wasn't any diplomatic relationship between Ethiopia and Israel. So the Jewish people in Ethiopia was really hunted by the government. So you had three options if you were Jews in Ethiopia. You could have converted, you could have been killed, or you could have come to Israel by a secret way. So most of the people decided, because of the hope that they had, to come to Israel, even if it includes maybe not even making to the way or even to be a part of their families. But most people decided that they do want to come to Israel. So there was two options. There was two big operations. The first one was Operation Moses, which happened in 1984. This operation was a little bit more problematic because, as I said, Israel and Ethiopia didn't have any diplomatic relationships, so you had to walk in the desert for sometimes months, and sometimes you had to go in a very dangerous places in Sudan, and then you would come to a camp, and after a few months, sometimes a year, the Israeli aircrafts would bring you to Israel. I have to say that it sounds pretty simple, but it really wasn't. A lot of people didn't make the journey. A lot of people, the journey was included with kids and elders and babies, and a lot of people just didn't make the journey. And even my grandma, she always tells me how a lot of people, a lot of members in her family and even her brother didn't make the journey. So it's the concept of leaving everything and coming and doing this journey and losing your family is just, sometimes I don't even understand how you can do it. And when I ask her, Grandma, how did you do it so, it seems so easily for you? And she tells me that she always had the hope. She always had the hope to come to Jerusalem. It's funny because in Ethiopia they built houses from straws because they saw it as so temporary. They saw it as something so temporary to live outside of Israel. They always knew that someone will come back to Israel. So it just shows you how much they had the hope to come back to Israel. And the second operation is Operation Salmon, which this operation my parents actually came with. And it was a little bit easier operation because at that time the dictatorship in Ethiopia collapsed. And in that operation, aircraft came to Ethiopia and brought people to Israel, and almost 15,000 people were brought in this operation. So this is, you can see how crowded it was, and during those years, how many people came to Ethiopia, to Israel, sorry. This is my mom in the absorption center in Kiryat Gat. So after all the immigrants, the Ethiopian Jews came to Israel, they were placed in an absorption center for a few years to learn the language and it was very hard because in Ethiopia there wasn't even running water and it was villages, and it was really, really hard to concept a modern country. So they had to learn everything by scratch. This is me. My family.
In the middle?
Yeah, this is me in the middle. I'm the youngest. And this is actually in the army. This is a course in the army called the Amir course, which is a course for Ethiopian soldiers to integrate better in the army. And this is me with the Israeli chief of staff, if you recognize. Which brings me back, or which takes me to the law of return, which by definition is a law for all Jew that want to come back to Israel, that he has the right to do so. Later on we will explain what it means to be a Jew by this law. And it talks about coming back to Israel, started in the late 19, but was only established in the 1917 in the Balfour Declaration, and was a law only when Israel was established in 1948. And this law essentially granted all Jews the right to immigrate.
For her brother to enter because he was injured, because they weren't letting any men come into Israel. They didn't want them to join the army. And it turned out that my grandma was the one joining the army, and she fought after some years in the independence war in Israel. Then she met my grandpa, and they moved to Mexico. And some years after, I was born in Mexico. And I was born and raised there. And I don't know if you've ever been in Mexico, but the Jewish community is almost 40,000 people. It has very good relationship with the state of Israel. There's a lot of Zionism, there are a lot of Jewish youth movements, and we have Jewish schools, we have synagogues, and I always called it like this world-proof Jewish bubble in Mexico. I was download the app, it's called Actael, and we're fighting things, it's the demonization of Israel and also topics that involve the world, and probably like most people haven't realized, but it's the incitement to terror, to violence. And so join our community. This is my grandma. Her name was Floreta. I'm also called Floreta after her. So I feel like many years after
Israel, and it had a small exception that if you're a threat to society, like a convicted murderer, you can't come, but usually people can come. And this raises a question about who is considered Jewish by this law. And in the beginning, this law applied only to Jewish people by halakha, by religion, which means that you had to have a Jewish mother, because in Judaism, the religion is maternal. And in 1970, there was a very important change made to this law that said that you are religious. And because of this change of law, all these families could come to Israel. So this is me in Moscow when I was 2 years old. Like I said, I was born in Moscow, capital of Soviet Union, and I came to Israel with my parents and my older sister in 1990 when I was 3. And just to give you a bit, it was hard, but still 300,000 Jews managed to get an exit visa, and about half of them came to Israel in the 70s. Now, during the 80s, the USSR gradually broke apart, and in 1989 the borders were opened, and this started a very, very massive immigration wave out of the Soviet Union, not only Jews, but also Jews. So during the 15 years since the USSR broke apart, 1.5 million Jews left Soviet Union countries, and the peak of this immigration was in the first 2 years, so in 1990, 1991. In 1990, for example, it's when my family came, and in 1 year, 400,000 people came to Israel. It's a lot. And you need to remember that Israel the whole of Israel was 4 million people population, so it's 10%. So it's like in the United States, 30 million people will come in 1 year due. And not only come, not knock on the door, the country will invite them, will pay them, will get them housing, and help them with jobs and language. And Israel really, really wanted it. Now, it was not the best timing for Israel. It was really young. In the 80s, Israel had a massive financial crisis and inflation of more than 100%, and the currency was changed. And in 1990, there was the Gulf War, and the rockets were falling on Tel Aviv from Iraq. And during this time, all these people came, and it was really hard, but somehow they managed. So, for example, my family managed to get an apartment through friends, like to rent. But then, at some point, there were no more apartments. So the government organized temporary housing projects, and it really helped the immigration. This guy is a bit iconic, Natan Sharansky. He is seen by a lot of people as a symbol of the struggle of Russian immigrants to come. He really wanted to come. He was sentenced in jail, and eventually he was freed, and he came and became a politician in Israel, and today he is the head of the Jewish Agency, so we made it. A little bit more about myself. So, like I said, I came in 1990. These are my parents when they only came. Another interesting part of this community in Israel is the ex-Red Army soldiers. If you didn't know, about 500,000 Jews were fighting in the Red Army against the Nazis in World War II, including my grandparents. So, for example, here we are, and here we are also, me and my sister. So my granddad, he was a
Yemen. The big operation called Magic Carpet. It happened in 1949, one of the first officially aliyot after Israel was established, and almost 50,000 people came during that operation. British and American aircrafts made 380 flights from Yemen to Israel, and the population of Yemen people now are a lot of people in Israel, and it's really like we're all part of the Jewish people, and the food, and Yemen food, and jachnun, and it's like everywhere. This is yes.
This is like one of the latest migrants olim to Israel from Yemen. Those families came to Israel 2 years ago, almost. Today in Yemen, the situation is very bad. Those were one of the last families, and they're actually a very close family, if not fathers and brothers of...
because it taught me a very, very important lesson. I didn't go to Israel with any wave or with any group. I went by myself. But I need to emphasize that I've never felt lonely in Israel because of the same open culture and receiving and warm. But my best friend actually came with this wave of Aliyah, She was born in Argentina, and as you can see in the next slide, the first place they won was Spain, and the 5th is Israel. So her family moved from Argentina to Spain, and then